We are talking about friendship and seeking God's wisdom about this. This academic year, as you know, we've been devoting it to studying wisdom in Proverbs and a little bit in Ecclesiastes. And so this spring, we are starting to look at different topics. We have looked at time and how time is to be used, how we're to understand time. Now we're looking at friendship. And if there's anything that grounds a community of believers, it is that sense of togetherness, friendship, brotherly affection, phileo, if you want to put a term on it, from the Greek word love. That kind of love is the foundation of who we are as the body of Christ, and it was given to us by Jesus Christ. Proverbs is illuminating for us the wisdom of how friendship works. And we've been exploring the idea for a couple of weeks that friendship is really built on shared love for well or ill. The things that we love show up in our friendships. And, here we've got a picture of young boys fishing. And so how often does this happen, that friendships develop over something like fishing? They can develop over sports. They can develop over book clubs, playing chess, whatever it may be. All kinds of friendships develop over shared activities. And yes, we love the activity, but the friendship develops because we start to love something in the other person or the people that we share that time with. And we love the way they think, we love their skills, we have affection for their foibles and their failings, and we make fun of each other, and we just enjoy our company. So friendship is the mirror of what we love. And that's for well or ill. It can mean that what we love is absolutely toxic, because what's showing up in our friendships is toxic. Either the activities we love together are openly sinful. I mentioned gossip last week. That may be the characteristic of your friendships. You switch out fishing here. I don't know what else you would want to put in there. You could make a painting about young boys' friendships that featured drugs and alcohol. You could feature, drag racing on the strip, or just going around making trouble. You could paint that picture. Maybe friendships form around those things. Maybe you come to find that your friendships are indeed forming around a shared love, but that shared love isn't a good thing. That you're building folly. There's just no other word for it. Building folly into the structure of your life through your friendships. And so our friendships are really a mirror of our character. They show us something about who we are. And so I want to hold up this mirror to us this morning, all of us, and ask you this question: what is the shared love that your friendships are built around? And I want to put out there one very specific shared love that we often build friendships around. And I call it a shared love, but it's going to be kind of ironic. A shared love of me. We often form friendships. Two people get together, or 3 or 5 people become friends because they all like how they feel who they are in that circle of friends. And so the friendship, in this weird sort of way, is people having fun together, maybe learning skills together, doing what they do as normal friendships do. But there's all this kind of weird, toxic competitiveness in the friendship because everybody's really trying to preserve themselves. They want to be liked. They want to be admired. They want to be received. They want to belong. And so the friendship becomes about me. We'll look at one example of this morning, and that is the dynamic of truthfulness in friendship. I want to talk with you about trust in friendship. If your shared love is with the people around you, if your shared love is we together love Jesus, we love his character, and we want to be like him, then I think your friendships are going to develop a quality that is really unbeatable. We'll look at that in a moment. The power of friendship to shape you as a disciple of Jesus Christ is really in this shared love of truth, where you're gathering with people and you're gathering with them because they tell you the truth. You know where you stand with them, and the iron sharpens iron dynamic is fully operational, sparks included, and everybody is egging one another on to follow Christ and be like him. And so that's one kind of friendship. But if your friendships are founded on your love of me and the other person's love of me, then they're going to go another way entirely. And that brings us to flattery. Look with me at the primary way that trust is broken in friendships and lies start being told. Proverbs 29 and verse 5. A man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. The word flatters here is an interesting word, kind of an ironic word. The root meaning of it means to divide up, to give out portions. And so the idea of a flatterer here, as it kind of gets broken down in an intensive stem here to kind of take that core idea and make it a little bit more intense, the Hiphial stem here, it is taking this idea of dividing things up and saying, you know, you can do that to your own heart. You can divide up your heart, and you can give a portion of it to this person and another portion of it to this person, and only you see all the parts of your heart. And so that's the picture of what gets translated here, flattery. And it's used both in Psalms and Proverbs to describe a person who comes to you with constant and excessive praise. And what you're hearing from that person is seemingly wonderful. It's affirming. It's everything you want to hear about yourself. And what's funny about flattery is that it's always just exactly what you want to hear. A little bit. And it just goes straight in because you've been looking for someone to recognize this quality in you. And the flatterer comes up and gives you exactly what you've been looking for. But all you're getting is a portion of a divided heart. You're not getting the whole heart of this person who wants your friendship. Friendships that are founded on a shared love of me are founded on flattery. And they end up being a relationship where you hang around people who flatter you and give you the affirmation that you've been seeking because you need it. You want it. You crave it. And you think, boy, if I don't have these friends, who's going to recognize all of these good qualities in me? And so friendships, sometimes I wonder, do you ever look at a friendship and say, why are these people still friends? Because they fight like cats and dogs, and they've broken up more often than anybody I've ever known, and yet this friendship always seems to reassemble, and they're back together again. Or maybe you see a whole group of friends where some people are real tight with each other for a couple of months, and then they're not so tight anymore. They're not talking to each other anymore. And now they're over here talking to this other person, and they're super tight. And so you see all this shifting around of people. What you're looking at is the outworking of flattery. This is the outworking of people who form friendships based on their need for affirmation, or, flip it around, their need to be liked. Their need to, there are some people who are kind of perversely insightful. They realize that if you give someone affirmation, they will like you. It's true. You start affirming somebody, you give them the affirmation, the compliments, the flattery that they seek and crave, they will like you. They'll glom onto you. They'll listen to you. They'll give you time because this person really likes me. This person really gets me, who I am. And so there are some people who give flattery and operate that way because they need to be needed, liked, and loved. And they know that this is the trick that will get them that kind of attention and that kind of devotion. So what do you have here in people who are flattering each other? They are saying things out of one portion of their heart. And they are giving compliments to each other because they both need it for different reasons. And in this cycle, people are super tight and can't get enough of each other and listen to and trust each other, and then all of a sudden they can't stand each other. They can't be around each other, and they're not talking anymore, and they're enemies. Why is that? Because flattery inevitably fails. Knew a guy once who, when I was a pastor in California, I never just gave a good sermon. It was always brilliant. And, I mean, I never just gave kind of a, yeah, that was helpful. No, with this guy, he was genius. And I would talk to this guy, and he would take a long time to say it. You know, it was never just the one word. He would tell me in great detail just how brilliant I had been. And so, I don't know, there's a fair amount of greasiness that I start to feel when somebody's talking to me that way. And I just start to suspect, you know, what's going on here. Well, we got to know each other more, and I just started, you know, you want to be charitable with people, and so I thought, well, I don't want to judge this too much. Maybe he's just this way. He's just a little over the top in his personality. And so we started to get to know each other, and I started to minister with him in leadership, because lots of people were being flattered by him, and lots of people were starting to trust him. And so in a particular church, he became an elder in the church. And the minute that happened, it was a funny thing. It was like somebody threw a switch. Suddenly, I was not so brilliant. I was not quite the genius that he thought I was. Suddenly, I was not a very loving person. And I have a lot of conflicts with people that I'm just totally unaware of. Here, I'll give you 3. And this man would start to tell me, you've got a problem with this person over here. This person thinks this, and they're kind of right. So you need to do this. So I was in the position of being in harness with a guy who had been flattering me, and he was flattering everybody else, and now all of a sudden we're stuck with this. And long story short, he was giving me advice that would, unbeknownst to me, blow up lots of relationships if I followed it. And so this was, you've heard that term, gaslighting. That was this guy. And who knows, sometimes I wonder, why on earth was he doing this? It just didn't make any sense because it was so self-defeating. After a while, lots of people realized what he was doing because he was doing it so broadly, and he lost credibility, and he lost his standing as an elder, and I didn't have to do anything about that. He did it himself. And that takes us to the next observation here in 29:5. A man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. So it would seem to say the person who is flattering you is laying traps for you, and I can certainly attest to that. He was definitely doing that, laying out nets for me. By the way, I have a little method for dealing with this. When somebody's trying to play me, I just kind of let them do it for a while. And so there were some things that he advised me to do, and I took his advice in some of these things just to kind of see what would happen, and realized that he had been saying different things to the other person and different things to me to create a conflict where there really wasn't one. And so, I'm not, I'm a judgmental person, but I'm not so judgmental that I would accuse somebody of this right out of the gate. I gave him a chance. In fact, I gave him numerous chances and observed outcomes. And so, the nets were there. Fortunately, for lots of my relationships, we didn't fall into them. Some people did. But the thing that I notice most about this proverb is it's a little ambiguous. A man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. Whose feet? The neighbor's feet? No, maybe. But maybe his own. And every time I come to an ambiguity like this in the Proverbs and the Psalms and the prophets, I end up saying, yeah, it's both. He's trying to lay a trap for his neighbor, but in reality, he's laying a trap for himself. This man has blown up more friendships and more key relationships in churches, and you follow the course of his life. He's just gone from church to church doing the same thing. He's building folly into his life. And his wife pays for it, and his kids pay for it, and the people who trust him all pay for it, but ultimately he's just laying a trap for him. Look at verse 6. I'll show you why I come to this conclusion. An evil man is ensnared in his own transgression, but the righteous man sings and rejoices. So whose feet are going to be trapped by flattery? The receiver of the flattery or the flatterer? If you're wise, you will not listen to flattery. You will automatically discount it. Even if you come to the conclusion, well, this is just sort of over the top, well-intentioned thinking, but you reject flattery as unbelievable. It is not credible. The flatterer comes to you and says things that you should not believe about yourself, and that ultimately the flatterer does not believe either. And so a whole relationship can be founded upon lies. Now, what happens if you have a whole church full of flatterers? Well, look out. You're going to have a very unstable set of relationships. If everybody is in love with me and forming relationships based on that love of me, and we're all making agreements to keep each other sort of propped up in this false economy of pride, and perhaps wounded pride, if that's how a church community is, it's going to fall apart. So there are tremendous issues being raised here. A question just came in. Oh, wow. Several questions came in. What is an appropriate way to rebuke a friend? In other words, what is Christ-like correction? I'm going to say that person has the gift of prophecy and knows where we're headed in this sermon. So I'll reserve my answer to that question. How do you know the difference between flattery and genuine encouragement? You know, that's a good question. I have found that people who are genuinely encouraging are specific, not broad. They give you something concrete, real, in the moment, and they say, that was really good. And they kind of leave it at that. And they don't turn you into, Leonardo da Vinci or whatever. You did a good thing there. And I've seen you do that before, in fact. And that kind of encouragement is the food of friendship. It's the food of teaching. I learned this from a violin teacher in college who pretty much the whole method, the way he taught, was by affirming what was right and building on that. So encouragement is a powerful tool. Affirmation is a powerful tool. And that is what makes flattery all the more dastardly. Because flattery imitates something that is good and that we need. So the antidote to flattery is encouragement. The antidote to flattery is not criticism. So another question, how do we establish healthy boundaries around a shared love and a friendship so that it does not become self-centered and destroy the friendship? I'm going to say, as a short answer, and then I'm going to defer to later, putting Christ at the center of a relationship automatically sets a whole bunch of boundaries. And then you don't have to worry about, are we fishing together too much? Are we, if you're in Christ and that time spent fishing is encouraging you in your walk with Christ and the other person, keep fishing. Don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'll talk more about this. Tyndale describes the spiritual gift of exhortation as competence in offering encouragement, comfort, and support to help someone be all that God wants them to be, whereas the line between encouragement and flattery. I'll take this excuse to give you another line here. that exhortation, we tend to think of it as a negative thing, where I'm exhorting you because I'm telling you what you're doing wrong. It could well be that exhortation is much more like comfort. In fact, they might be flip sides of the same coin. And I would just throw out there that the person who gives you comfort in the midst of failure, where you know you blew it, and this person is comforting in you and saying, yeah, you blew it, but Jesus is still on the throne, and you're still under the power of the cross, and you're going to keep going with this, and everything's going to be fine. Just keep going. Don't give up. That person is not flattering you. That person is giving you strong spiritual counsel to keep believing God and keep going in that way. So there is a deep need for true encouragement. And then another question along these same lines here. So great questions so far, just to encourage you. Okay. So building up trust in a relationship. Now these questions, they're genius. You people are so smart that I just can't keep up. Yeah. I'm going to get fired if I keep talking that way. Okay. Let's look at the opposite of flattery, where your friendship is not formed around your love of me on both sides. Your friendship is formed around your love of Christ and the truth, knowing where we stand in situations. And so this is a very famous proverb. In fact, you know how certain verses get tainted by the people who misuse them? The man I just described, who thought I was brilliant for about 6 months, he would use this verse when he flipped, and when all of a sudden everything I did was wrong. And he would say, well, now, I'm that faithful friend, Matt. I'm just telling you, I know this is wounding, but it is in faithfulness. So I'm going to, sometimes you run from these verses that people have misused in your life. I'm going to preach on this verse just to spite him. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. So the word kisses is another interesting Hebrew word. It just means kiss. It's used in Song of Solomon. So profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Think Pepe Le Pew, always kissing. If you don't know Pepe Le Pew, Google it. It'll make your day. But in any case, you can't trust that. That's the flatterer who's giving you part of his heart, but not the whole. So what should you trust? Faithful are the wounds of an enemy. You just back up to the previous verse. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. There's a sense in which if you know where you stand, you can trust the person. And in this proverb, verse 6, there's a friend, a lover even. And, okay, I'm going to make a sidebar here. I'll try not to make it too long. When I put up the painting of the boys fishing, and I put the word love there, I paused. I did that because, what if people get the wrong idea about what I mean with this painting? We have done something to love, male friendship, that is deeply harmful. To to the point where men, my observation is men don't feel comfortable showing affection for each other for fear of this being misinterpreted. And I would just say, pay attention to this word friend in 27:6. It means the person who loves you. And men, you need men in your life who love you deeply. And we need that because this is a messed up world, and we need comrades and brothers who've got our back. Women, you need women who love you. And we need to recover this language so that we're not embarrassed about talking this way. Faithful are the wounds of someone who loves you. Faithful. There are different words for faithful. There's the word emet, truth. This is a word that means verified, confirmed, tested. You have tested this person's love and seen this person's love over a course of ground for years. You know this person. You may have known this person for decades, and they haul off and say something to you that just goes deep. It's wounding. And it's also true. And you wouldn't take it from anybody else. But you hear it from that person, the lover of your soul. And you can accept it, you can receive it, because it's confirmed, it's faithful, it's verified. This person is on your team, and they're telling you the truth. The difference between how do we confront each other about things that are painful? How do we do that the right way? I would say this: there's no tactic. There's no tone of voice. There's no wording. There's no trick. There's just time and the credibility that comes from time and being proven in your commitment with a person. And that's the kind of wound that is being described here, where you're saying, right now you're my doctor and you're telling me what's what. And this is one reason why men need long-term, lifelong friends. I got a message this week from a long-time friendship that was ruined by this man, who I described. And it was a painful thing. But I decided, you can't replace lifelong friendships, no matter how flawed they are, or how topsy-turvy the history may be. Can't replace them, because you can't replace 30, 40 years, whatever it is. And so maybe there will be restoration there. That would be a very good thing. We've started communicating, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Lord does with it. We'll see what faithfulness reemerges on both sides. Sometimes you just got to engage and see what the Lord does with the outcome. So this is saying, faithful are the wounds of a friend. So my question to you is, what are your friendships really founded around? What is the real shared love in your friendships? Is it a shared love of me, or is it a shared love of Jesus. That shared love of Jesus is the love that spurs you on to tell one another the truth. And that those wounds, even when they happen, they are wounds that are redemptive. You say, what does this look like? Well, there are some fishing stories about friendship in the New Testament, specifically the Gospel of John, that show us the character of Christ. You know the story. Go to John 21. Let's look at an example of the wounds of a friend. You know that Peter told Jesus that he was going to go to prison and to death for Jesus. Even if everybody else falls away, I won't. Because you're my guy. And I'm in this for the long haul, and I'm going to sacrifice for you. I love you that much. And Jesus' reply to him is, before the cock crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. And he does. And so when Peter sees Jesus on the cross, it's after he has run away weeping over his own disloyalty. He flattered Jesus with one part of his heart. And with that part of his heart, he meant it. Then he cut and ran. At least 3 times. Probably more. And so, Jesus dies. He rises again. He comes back. And now Peter decides he says he's going fishing after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And it's not not because it's his pastime. It's his job. What he's saying is, I am leaving this kingdom work because despair. I'm going back to my old way of working. I'm going fishing. So he does, and others go with him, and you know the story. Jesus shows up on the shore and gives them a massive haul of fish, and he says, bring it all ashore, we'll have breakfast. And so, verse 11, Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. So that's a sense of how much Peter is still yearning for Jesus, for the friend he sold out to save his own skin multiple times. Now look at verse 15. When they had finished breakfast, notice this, fellowship first, friendship first, then confrontation. So it's not confront him and then we'll decide whether we're going to have breakfast. No, that's not it. Breakfast first, fellowship first, then we confront. Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you agape me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. You know the difference. Peter, would you die for me? Would you sacrifice your life for me more than these others? And Peter says, in essence, no. I'm your guy. I'm on your team. I love you with brotherly love. Verse 16. I'm sorry. Yes, Lord, you know that I phileo you. He said to him, feed my lambs. What are you doing here fishing? I didn't send you fishing. He said to him a second time, verse 16, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Same exact use of words there. He said to him, tend my sheep. He said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you phileo me? Am I your guy? Are we on the same team? And do you like me a whole lot? Do you have brotherly affection for me? Switches the words. And that third time, probably both because of the correspondence between Peter's denials and because of the lower bar. Okay, Peter, so you don't agape me. You wouldn't give your life for me. Do you have a lot of brotherly affection for me? And Peter is grieved by this. Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you phileo me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I have a lot of brotherly affection for you. I'm your guy. And Jesus said to him an amazing thing. Feed my sheep. Yeah, the bar's lower. That doesn't change your job, and it doesn't change what I am doing in you. It doesn't change the course of your life. Get to work. Feed my sheep. You're in. You're not out. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. And this he said to show by what kind of death he was to glorify God. Peter, you know, and I know, that you don't want to die for me. And yet you kind of do. Part of you was in earnest saying, I'll die for you. You know what, Peter? You will. It's going to happen, even though you don't want it. And it's going to glorify me. You're going to get what part of your heart wants, and your heart's going to be healed and bigger and have more integrity in the future. And you're going to give this gift that you weren't able to give now. And after saying this, he said to him, follow me. Jesus' confrontation, Jesus' wounds to his friends are redemptive. He chooses a limited way to address the issue with Peter. It's not a kind of scorching of Peter. It's not abusive. It's not angry. It's not malicious. It's redemptive. We need to talk about this. We need to confront it, and I'm going to do that. But here we are. This is all we're going to do with this. And we're not going to go further. The other thing about Jesus' wounds to a friend is they are restorative. Jesus is in the act of restoring Peter, not just confronting him. He's in the act of saying to Peter, get back to your job. I told you to lead and to serve my sheep and feed them. So get back to work. You're a shepherd. And so Jesus is not in the revenge business. He is in the redemption and restoration business. You want to know what it looks like to be on the receiving end of wounds from a friend that are faithful? The character of Christ is the measure of that. And we need people around us who have that kind of credibility with us over a long period of time. We know them and they know us. We're focusing on community this year not because it would be a really nice thing that would add good things to your life. No. It's essential to the life of the church, and we're dying without friendships. We're dying without Christian friendships that give that kind of encouragement, even when it wounds. We're dying because of it. Our fervency grows cold. Our devotion becomes more scattered. And our loves spread around to all sorts of other things in this world. Beloved, all that to say, let us love one another. And love one another deeply.